G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave's Orc Stuff, Ukraine War Update for the 5th of October 2025. I'm your host, the author, David Applegate, author of the books The Boyhood Arcade, Power Games, Into the Elsebound, and The Erotic Tales from the Empire. Thank you, and a big thank you to all those who support the channel. If you'd like to support the channel, the links are in the link tree. You can buy my books, buy my merch, support me on Patreon. Or Ko-Fi. I might have to do a little spiel just for this end and try to get used to doing it at the end, I think. Now, of course, the war propaganda continues. And it's reached peak ludicrous. I don't know. Feedback is appreciated. But of course, the only thing I get complaints about is the volume's either too loud or too low. I really appreciate the feedback. Again, I don't know why the volume is low for some people, but not everybody. I know some people get so picky about the sound levels. I'm not a sound engineer. And I'm not like bankrolled that I'm... sometimes I feel like most people on YouTube are well funded and you judge all YouTubers by the Tucker Carlsons and the Megyn Kellys and all the people who've been around for a long time who have professional managers who can make sure they have the right microphone, the right sound levels. All their videos are pre-recorded. They have the right compression software. It's all, a learning curve, and I ain't getting the breaks. I'm treated like garbage by most people because I tell the truth. People want... I got people in real life doing the same thing, crapping on, going about how Ukraine's this amazing star, they're so brave. It's the propaganda. And it's a shame that most of humanity just so easily manipulated. Then again, millions of people fell for Florida real estate scams over the last 50, 100 years, or bought snake oil. Heck, I've been to countries where people do actually literally sell snake oil as medicine. There are people who still think the jab, despite the numerous information that we have at our fingertips, is safe and effective. And there are people out there who literally post, but the government would never allow it. Look up FDA and corruption, please. Honestly. Now, some of this propaganda is not from Ukraine. Some of it is cope. Some of it is war profiteering, like comics about Ukraine. But there is actually, I think it's in images, T-shirts sold by the Ukrainian government. But there is cope. So much cope. Oh, it's not here. And it's changed. Oh, yeah, there's the Etsy. There are people profiting off this war. Shows you how low people could go and how governments are pretty much shite. Now you can see as 15 years ago, I think. 15? 20? because he's obviously put on weight, but the man bulked up overnight. And as Joe Rogan would tell you, that's all the drugs, right? Look at the difference. That's all the drugs right there. The cocaine nose, the inflated chest, the inflated arms. That's a lot of carbs, a lot of wheat, a lot of shakes, and a lot of drugs, a lot of painkillers. And obviously a wee bit of surgery. I forget who it was. It was an American actor. Did a lot of topless, guys do the shirtless thing in the early days of their acting career. And he admitted that he didn't spend a day in the gym. It was all performance enhancing and body sculpting. And later in life, he had started to have knee and other joint problems because of the saline poisoning, because the bags were leaking. I'm just saying. Now, they call him a genius, but he's a dick. Okay, he's playing the piano with his dick. Okay, that's not genius. Okay, there's plenty of people who've done puppeteering with their penis. Okay, he's not an original, but that's his claim to fame. That and insulting the Ukrainian government and not being prosecuted for it, which is what got him elected. Is that nobody in the past, people went to jail for some of the that's the thing. Some of the things that Zelensky's credited to Zelensky got other people in jail, but they're not jokes. He was serious. His entire TV show was a political campaign put together by professional political campaigners. The election was rigged. Some of the disputed areas of Ukraine were excluded from the vote. That's why these people have been protesting and eventually attacked by Ukraine to try and force them to stop protesting. The EU pretty much is politically biased, racially motivated. They are Russophobic. They have a desire to oppress Russia and break up Russia because big countries make them feel danger. But small countries get swallowed up by big countries. That's why Russia tries to stay together. That's why the people of Donbass voted to join Russia, because they appealed to the EU for help when Ukraine was a Chinese ally, and Ukraine turns around and gets replaced by a pro-Ukrainian, pro-European, which sounds odd, I know, but that's how he described himself. But somehow the anti-EU sentiment, which was 70% of the population the year before, is suddenly 90% pro-EU in the first election since the coup. And since then, I get it. The EU offered money. Lots of it. There is anecdotal stories about NGOs going around buying people's votes. This is what happened in Poland. Poland admitted to being bought by the EU. And now they're worried that they now have to fund Ukraine when they themselves only join the EU for the funding. But once you become a rich country in the EU, you go from being funded to the fundee. because that money has to come from somewhere. And as the EU runs out of resources because they waste them endlessly on folks, you know about the CERN collider? It's cost billions of dollars a year to run. France spent billions on fusion technology to only have it stolen by India. The Netherlands was developing nuclear technology, which was stolen by Pakistan, and the Dutch program got shut down. These so-called migrants, these stories get suppressed because time and time again, Europe gives billions to migrants who develop technologies and then up and go back to their home countries. China's done it. India's done it. Israel's done it. Though France, China, India, Israel have done it to America as well. But people forget. And the problem that most people forget is, 1, Ukraine was a Chinese ally. 2, Ukraine had an illegal coup to replace its government, backed by Obama. And that is why so many Americans today, you got to ask yourself, if you're a Trump supporter, why are you supporting Obama's foreign policy in Ukraine? Why are you supporting the Uni Party when the Uni Party is plotting to send you to war so that Gavin Newsom can win an election? Don't believe me? Look at the military vote. How did the military vote go? Obama, Biden, Trump, Biden, and then suddenly we find out that a lot of these overseas votes didn't even count somehow in 2022, and 2020 and midterms. So don't believe. I get why people may doubt what I say, but people don't look up. People don't verify. People are far too trusting. The left are abusing your trust. You look at China. China is bankrupt. China is using China to bail itself out. Forced Russia into a war because China's the one who's supposed to guarantee Ukraine's safety and security. But as soon as the coup occurred, the Chinese security forces abandoned Ukraine. The Indian election monitors did nothing as the Ukrainians cheated on election after election. The Europeans monitored and watched and reported in 2022, I think it was in The Guardian, that Ukraine has a Nazi problem, and that initially Brussels was going to block them. But then comes Victoria Nuland. The President of the United States doesn't have power over Europe. Doesn't have direct power that they can say to, Obama's former Ukrainian advisors who will work for the Democrat Party, to STFU. It's against the American law. They have free speech. They can go to whatever country they like and say whatever they like. That's the problem with free speech. People lie. And idiots out there keep forgetting. Democrats lie. You remember the Canadian scandal. Nothing came of it. Canada cheered a Nazi. Not a piece of Antifa or some radical from Hicksville. I'm talking about a guy who fought for the Nazis in 1943, I think it was, on the Russian front. They cheered him as a Ukrainian hero. He fought the Russians for the Russians. He was one of the few survivors of Stalingrad. He fought for the Nazis, and they cheered him and called him a hero. His granddaughter is is a Ukrainian parliamentarian, and he's got a grandson who's a professor in Canada. You're being played by Ukraine as a fiddle. They've gotten into... This is the problem with ethnic groups getting into positions of power in other countries. They enact their country's foreign policy. And they never get kicked out because they say, it's our right, it's our freedoms. You've been played for mugs time and time again. Yet when I point it out, people don't subscribe, people tune out, people won't watch the entire video. But I'm not going to stop just because so many people out there do not want to hear the truth. You can see for yourself the same stories every day. They are bleating at you. And I won't repeat their bleating because that's what they want. These people have to repeat their lies over and over again until they get enough muppets believing it. You think that doesn't work? Every day on YouTube, Africans claim Cleopatra was black. Suddenly, Netflix produces a black Cleopatra, and now history books have been rewritten. Was Cleopatra black? And they start making up stories about her mother being some black Nubian. But that's what liars do. And yet, time and time again, you say the government won't allow lies, but they do because the liars are protected while the people who tell the truth are suppressed by the people who don't want to hear the truth, who profit off the lies. Here is a map of Ukraine from a Ukrainian site. No Ukrainian counter-offensive. No Ukrainian pushback. Yet time and time again I see the same things on YouTube channels. I keep getting recommended that says, Putin humiliated, massive defeat at Kursk. Russia pushed out of Kupiansk. Sadivia liberated. Time and time again, hundreds of thousands of people watch the same lies told to them every day. Yet here is the source map from the Ukrainian army itself, showing you. And I told you 2 days ago, Russia announced that it had changed its missiles programming and updated its Iskander and Kinzhal missiles, not only to be faster, though that little bit of speed boost really didn't make much of a difference. It might have actually reduced their range, but they didn't need more range, only that little bit more speed and maneuverability. And where are these glorious Neptune missiles that Ukraine keeps bragging about? No electronic jamming drones were reported in Russia, but no Kinzhals. Drones were launched from a ship off the coast. It was actually a ship off the coast. Okay. Again, Telegram. Though there is also trucks that do come into and do cross the bridge at Kursk and come up through this highway up here, directly up here to Kherson to launch. Those are really... every day they launch surveillance drones, hundreds of them. Lots get shot down. In fact, that's what mostly Ukraine does. Most of the drones shot down by Ukraine are in fact surveillance drones. A lot of these drones were probably surveillance drones. But a large number of missiles were seen and hit parts of Ukraine. They hit rail, bridges, they've hit factories, they've hit warehouses, they hit communication hubs. And you can see Ukraine's own imagery. They never showed. They even showed a train on one YouTube channel saying that a Russian train tipped over in Polominsky. And Polominsky is in Ukraine, and you can see that. But people don't check. Now, as far as I could tell, there's no train in Polominsky even. But that could be just by not seeing the map properly. But I thought the major rail hub, Kiev, that, anyway, on investigation, it's Dnipro. The train was from Russia. So is most of the trains in Ukraine. But yeah, a train crossing the Dnipro bridge was hit by drones. That's not reported here. But this is the problem. Ukrainian propagandists can say anything. They don't get kicked off YouTube. They don't get fact-checked. They don't get attacked on Facebook by Facebook for misinformation. They don't have their channels downgraded or marked. Every week I get downgraded on YouTube and Facebook and X for misinformation. And I appeal and they get rid of the tag. But if I don't appeal, but the thing is that damage is done, isn't it? Because while you're waiting for them to remove the tag, people aren't seeing your videos, are they? And this is what they do. They are silencing opposition by carefully manipulating you, the audience, into not watching. They manipulate the view counts. They manipulate the downvotes. They unsubscribe people. They don't recommend the channel to a lot of people. And then they blame you and tell you to get good. And then worse, you have your shills who constantly nitpick everything you do. Your hair's not right. Wash your hair, Dave. Cut your beard, Dave. Your accent's fake, Dave. You don't know what you're talking about, Dave. You're just a fantasy writer, Dave. If you haven't seen the pattern, that's right. They cannot debate the facts. They cannot debate the facts that Ukraine won't show you what's hit. Why? If they hit a school, do you imagine the propaganda value? But they don't. They won't show you. Or they won't show you what was really there. Because we all know a lot of these empty buildings in these towns are occupied by the Ukrainian army. Now, these transfer hubs and in Sumy from Poland, it's a road you can see. It comes down here. There's actually a road, I think, closer. Yeah, comes down to here and then comes around, down here, through here. Now it goes up to here, but it spurs down to Kiev. But there's another one, and yeah, it spurs down to here to Kharkiv. Remember, all these roads were all designed and placed in the Soviet Union, were actually based on campaign trails from the 14th to 17th century. These roads were put in place by various conquests and defenders. Europe was defended on the soil of Ukraine against the Mongol invasion. Kiev was a castle against the Kiev Knights were outsiders, outside of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth that ruled most of Eastern Europe. However, during the Soviet era, these states were envious of Belarus and Ukraine. Poland was pretty much wanting Kaliningrad, which was German, and parts of Germany here. They still rule parts of Germany. It was given to them to punish the Germans. This is a problem throughout history, in that people go from being oppressed to the oppressor. The Romans oppressed the Brits, left them with such a bad feeling, destroyed their people so much that they took every opportunity to grow in power, wealth, and privilege to make sure that nobody was in a position to ever threaten them again. And that is the position Europe is in, and that is the psychology behind the Ukraine war. That the Soviet Union was so bad, Ukraine has such a disdain. But see, that revenge fantasy that grows out of that darkness, they will not admit they were the oppressors, and that's why the other nations on their periphery don't like them. But now they see Ukraine as a buffer zone, and I can understand that. But if I was Warsaw, Hungary, Romania, and Lithuania, I would form a pact to keep Ukraine neutral and push even Belarus to neutrality to make sure there's a huge buffer zone so that nobody can creep up and put missiles on your border. And likewise, if you're creeping up on Russia to put missiles on their border, you do not have good intentions. You are not defensive, you are offensive. Now we go around the map very quickly. You can see that the battles are in the same usual places. Though Russia has struck different targets today, most of the battles are in the same places, with not much going on here in the north, but there is a little bit of an advance reported in the north. And we can see Kupiansk, the battle continues for Kupiansk. The parts of the center of Kupiansk has been taken. The Russians have taken this block down through here on the outskirts. They are most likely moving down these roads to engage the Ukrainians here, and probably in buildings along here. And there will be further Ukrainian defenders all through the banks of this. Is it river or canal? I think it's a river. I think it's canal. That's the river. Yeah, that's the canal. Right. They'll also be in Maine and as well as here. Now, of course, there are areas where Russia's not advancing because they are undermanned. They have to concentrate their forces against the superior numbers of the Ukrainians. But they are making advances. They've advanced past. They were, for a long time, months, I reported they were stuck in Zakrin. They've advanced through most of Zakrin, starting to get, Stavigi and Lyman. There seems to be no political line, but I think it has been crossed. I think Zakrin is now as all but. Novoskar, still, Russia hasn't crossed the reservoir. Same with Donetsk. They are still on the outskirts. Russia's made some advances here. They're now fighting on the outskirts of Seversk, having advanced up to Seversk over the last week. Chavasyak and the siege of Kursk continues. Remember, it's 100,000 in these estimated 100,000 in each of these major centres, with 70 to 80,000 spread over this third line, mostly defended by heavier artillery and missiles. And the key supply line is under attack, although at the same time, around 70 to 100,000 here, though some say it's only 50 to 30,000. So there are conflicting reports about troop numbers. But the general consensus is the Ukrainian army is around 2.4 million, where the Russians is only 700,000. Sorry. But most of that 2.4 are police, firemen, volunteers. So that cuts it down to maybe pretty much 300 to 400,000 combat troops spread over 1,000 kilometres, with the rest coming and going on a 4 to 6 week rotation basis. Now we should be seeing a rotation, and though Russia can keep up the pressure probably another 2 weeks before we'll see rotation. Pardon me. But we've seen only little bits of advance, though spurs here and there. Artillery, nothing really consequential yet, but eventually one of these will fall, although this has fallen before, and the Ukrainians did push back 2 to 3 months ago, but they're lost. A lot of that territory that they gained is lost. Russians are back into... there's a little bit of advance here in Novo. So, again, don't take it as Russia is winning or Ukraine is losing. Russia's gained territory. Ukraine is equally taking a rather stern beating, bigger than previous, because Russia's improved its missiles. Who knows how long it'll take them to adjust, but no doubt there is adjustments. Now, one of the things that Russia has improved is the Terminator. The T-90MS. We see the dual cannon. These are... and the anti-tank missile. We see the tracking radar. These are modified for helicopter. Originally designed for helicopters, been redesigned for anti-drone warfare. They carry, as you can see, they carry an extra missile. So they have 4, although some specs did have them at 4 initially. But there have been modifications. But here we have the twin cannon, 2 lots of... now, I believe these are Comet 2 launchers. These are all-purpose guided missiles, as opposed to dedicated anti-air. And again, that you'll actually notice that there are, there's smoke, there's imaging, there's the anti-drone cage at the back. These are being loaded onto rail and sent off. You can see as they leave, they've had armoured skirts added. So they have a bigger missile, bigger. The smaller guns are replaced with two bigger guns. So they've got the new upgraded Comet 2s as opposed to the smaller Comet. You can see the armoured skirt, the anti-drone cage, because most drones target the fuel. And just as it fades out, you can see that they have a reinforced back. All right. Ukrainians have taken to social media to report police brutality, that police are ganging up and bashing people and throwing them into the back of cars. And everyday Ukrainians just another day. They pull someone over. They rob him. See, they're taking stuff out of his pockets, putting it in their own. There's no evidence gathering. They see the beating repeatedly, kicking. The man is just delusional, delirious, or whatever. He's not resisting. He just, for whatever reason, apparently this is definitely, it's not given, but apparently TikTok and others routinely get what they call recruitment videos. Police arrest people on pretentious charges. They rob them and drag them to recruitment offices. So that, because police, once the town runs out of recruits, then the police are next, and then the firemen. Ukraine has been human sacrificed by Zelensky, and yet the West remains silent. Those who do speak up, like myself, are suppressed. Now, this is a bit misleading, but honest opinion is that Putin is being led to believe that the decision-making process, that there are those in the US Senate who will get their way to send Tomahawk missiles to Kiev. And Putin's saying this is a red line. Just like when America put a red line on use of certain weapons in Ukraine by Russia, limiting them to, glide bombs and the smaller projectiles. Although they've used the Orsk, that's about the biggest they've used, and they've only used it once, as far as I know, to destroy one rail yard. But billionaire Andrej Babis has won the Czech Republic's elections. He is the lead at 34%, beating other groups. It's still first past the post. But you can see how split the vote is. 34 to one group, and the next is 11, and you can imagine. But the Ukraine war was a key election issue. And the ANO doubled down during the campaign, promising Prague will stop supporting Ukraine. We're helping them already through the EU. EU is helping Ukraine, the European budget. The next budget, we're paying a lot of money. And that's the only way. So they're not cutting off Ukraine. They're just saying, we're not giving you extra. If the EU votes to supply money, that's how you get it. But we're not going to give you extra. We're not going to give you our weapons. We're not going to give you our manpower. and we're not going to give you our ammunition or aircraft. But that's about it, right? Czechoslovakia the Czechs have not cut off Ukraine as some would have you believe. They're only telling them, get your hand out of our fucking pocket. Now, Russian forces have allegedly taken a town. Now, this hasn't been reported by Ukraine, and these are often disputed. But as you can see on the map, Russia has advanced in several areas. Novosibirsk, and it is most likely that during this advance somewhere in here they've advanced, and somewhere in here they've taken another town, not very big, but there it is. So yeah, that's it. That's the state of the war. As you can see, there's still you can see the direction. All right, follow the lay of the land, the road, the lines of the map, the topography. They're not going to cross these hills. They're going to, unless they have to probably clear this whole area, but for now, so the hills are open ground. So they're not going to cross this open ground to be attacked from up, or probably along here, this buffer. So they're probably aiming to follow this line, cut through, start cutting through this, and probably cut the road and hold these two towns, and then go to work on Seversk, pushing the Ukrainians into Seversk, and then push up through here simultaneously on two directions. The force to cut this off, because the distribution hub, to cut this off, forcing a retreat up through here, and trying to force a retreat up through here. So force this up through here, and while they hold this all the way, probably a line right through here, probably a box, or maybe an open cauldron like Seversk, where they have the tip somewhere up through here and around and up through here, pretty much destroying. They'd have to destroy a lot though to do that, to lay siege to this, but that is where they are. And at the current rate, you can actually see that they're going to be bogged down for 2 to 3 years if they go that path, which you can see why Putin has offered several times peace. And in his peace offers, he's being quite inconsistent. You give up this, and we won't take the rest of this and this. I don't think there's much Ukraine. Well, Ukraine for now can hold the Russians here because there's not that many. Ukraine can't afford to cross the river because they keep losing thousands. So it's détente there. Here, the Russian progress has been stifled for so long and slow that they can afford to put most of their defenders into these two lines of defense and pretty much control the bulk of the war there. But eventually, Ukraine will run out of drones, and the longer it takes for drones to get to the front, this will take time to tell how much industrial output Ukraine has declined by, if any. Because remember, it's not the industrial output of Ukraine, It's the industrial output of the rest of Europe. This is to just destroy what is being accumulated in Ukraine. They cannot reach beyond that. And every time Russian missiles or drones pass Kiev, Poland is wasting time and money on putting up aircraft. But they're doing that so they can record everything to sell the information to the Americans. But the Americans don't need that. Well, probably it's cheaper than redirecting satellites to observe the patterns and to see if there is a pattern to Russian drones and missiles. And trust me, if there's an AI out there, American are using it to study the patterns of Russia's movement far better than I can tell you. But the pattern of Russian movement is clear that this is the target for now. That Lyman is just going to be sieged like Silvesk, and then they'll come up through here to push them out through here, and again cut this road off to stop resupplies and reinforcements, leaving and force a retreat up through there. So it's easier to fight. It's easier for the Russians to fight piecemeal and reshape the battlefield so that they can take all the state, rather than one line trying to go like this, because it will stagger, and air defenses are their key. As you can see here, they're trying to neutralize this because it supports this line. They're cutting off the supply lines, which will... they've got to cut this road. They've got to take this hub, and they have to bunny hop, right? They have to destroy, instead of destroying this town, they destroy this town, right? Let all this collapse, right? And once they start doing that, the Ukrainians will be in a panic. Now, on the Ukrainian side, they have to stabilize the front. Keep Russia 2, probably 3 months contained up here, and try to push this to a line, pushing back in a few key areas where they can, and then they can keep them below this line all the way through here and stall them. Continue to stall them here in Zaporozhye and Kherson as well. And again, détente will force an end to the war. Either way, a stalled battlefield for either side is the only... if Ukraine thinks it can leverage the Russian economy, all Russia's going to do is keep smashing your economy. Because eventually Europe will see the price of rebuilding Ukraine, not 1 million, not 1 million a month, not 2 billion a month. Not 1 million a week, but 2 billion a month for 100 years. And they'll say it's the price of freedom. But we saw how many economic collapses. 12. After World War II, 12 economic collapses worldwide. And that was over 129 billion. Ukraine's rebuilding could cost already 1.4 trillion. That's 1/10 of the world's GDP, by the way, allegedly. Although numbers again on that is inconsistent. Whereas Russia's rebuilding, 300 billion. So, advantage Russia still. And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I'd really like you if you could take a moment to like, share, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Costs you nothing, but really, I need your support, your financial support, not just your moral support, to join my Patreon, Buy my books, buy my merch. All my links in the link tree, description below, in my profile, or scan the QR code on the screen. Please and thank you. Really appreciate each and every one of you. See you in the next video, and bye for now.